Welcome to Living Chronic, the podcast that explores the realities of living with chronic illness and disability while redefining how we thrive in our personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Brandy Schantz, a disabled veteran and chronic illness warrior, here to discuss the challenges, triumphs, and untapped potential of life with a chronic condition. Before we dive in, please take a minute to hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening. Now, let's change the way we think about disability together. Hi, you're listening to Living Chronic. I'm Brandy Schantz, and today I am here with Shana Smith. She is an actress, and she is currently living with multiple sclerosis, so a fellow chronic illness warrior. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
So thank you so much for doing this. I love having people on from all around the world because so often I think, especially here in the United States, we think, oh, we have all of these problems. We're the only people that have these problems. How do we fix them? And of course, I've learned over time that we all, no matter where you live, encounter some of the same problems in our day to day lives in the healthcare system and in just finding life in general challenging and figuring out how to overcome those challenges. So I really love these. So thank you again. So if you could tell me a little bit about your story.
So I began getting symptoms, I think, in around 2020. It started with I had a bit of eye pain and my eye went really bloodshot. But with these things, especially with MS and the symptoms that you get, they'll only last for a couple of weeks and then they go away. So then you ignore it, and then the next thing happens, and it's like a repeating cycle. And then in 2021, the most notable thing that I had was a thing called limits or limites, depending how you pronounce it. I'm not sure how it's pronounced properly, which is an electric shock sensation that goes down your neck and your spine. Sometimes it can go to your legs and your arms. And I would get that every time I would bend my neck forwards. And I remember I was filming a self-tape and I got these sensations and I thought, what is going on? So then I was going back and forth from the doctors from 2021 until March of 2024 when I actually got my diagnosis. In between that time, I was not really sure what was going on, but also living my life, trying to get by when I would get sensations or feelings that I didn't know what it would be. So at the time, I was working in a scare attraction when I was experiencing a dead leg. And sometimes I'd have to run to emergencies or get there quite promptly. And I remember getting down to my team and we'd be laughing because I'd say, oh my God, guys, like my leg is so dead. I don't know what's going on. And we'd just be laughing about it because no one knew what it was. I thought I just had like a pinched nerve. So I was experiencing that. I also experienced a lot of back pain, which I still get now as well. But yeah, throughout this time, I wasn't really sure what was going on. And then once I got the diagnosis, I was able to look more into it. And yeah, now I know how to kind of handle my body a bit better and look after myself. So yeah, that's how I've ended up here and doing my chronically iconic with MS page.
That's the story. So many of us, we spend years trying to get a diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we hear from various sources, well, what does it matter if you have an actual diagnosis? You know what you're dealing with, sort of. You have some symptoms. Is that not enough to push you forward? But you really don't know how to adjust to your own body until you get that diagnosis. And once you have that diagnosis, that's when you start learning and you have that capability to reach out to others with your diagnosis and say, hey, I'm experiencing this. How about you? And I think that's one of the big stories of all of our lives. It's yes, we needed that diagnosis because it helped us to get to the next phase. How do we live our lives with this disease?
Definitely. And I found that when I was going through the main bulk of my diagnosis from 2023 when I had an MRI and I wasn't really sure what was going on and I was waiting for those results to come back, I was scouring the internet and I was trying to find like-minded people that were going through the same sort of symptoms that I was. And because I kind of had a gut feeling that I knew it was going to be multiple sclerosis anyway, I was looking at people's pages that were doing
Mhm.
videos or posts about that. But until I had the diagnosis, I didn't feel like I could reach out to them or say to them, like, hey, yeah, I might have it, but I also might not. So, like, I just didn't want to message them because I didn't know if it was that for sure.
Hmm.
So then once I got the diagnosis, I did, and I was able to then message people and reach out to them and say, hey, I've just been diagnosed. How did you deal with this? And how, like, yeah, so it was nice to get that diagnosis to then also build a community of people that are in the same position.
That's what's so important, the community, because you can't
100%.
do this alone.
No.
And as as of today, well, it's been 6 days now. We're recording during Mental Health Awareness Month, and I think that's such an important point to drive. It's that community that helps you get through these things because we're all struggling. It
Mhm.
isn't easy. It's not easy for anybody. Nobody's waking up and doing so much better than anyone else. We're all
No.
struggling and trying to figure out how to live each and every day. And that is the important part, that community piece. You have a specific situation. I just think this is so wonderful. You're an actress.
Mhm.
And, we all know about Christina Applegate, of course. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and she took a break from acting because these are difficult things to do in your body. So I
Mhm.
just think it's so tremendous. You're still out there and doing something that could be so physical. How do you prepare yourself for roles, knowing that you have to also prepare yourself for whatever MS is serving up to you for the
it's it's difficult because every role is different.
day? Hmm.
The last role that I done, it was quite nice actually because we had a lot of downtime, and I think that's with a lot of acting jobs, you do get a lot of downtime because that's
Hmm.
when the crew are setting up for the next scene or the director is going over the blocking. So you do get that downtime, but then sometimes it's really full on. And for me, I find that if I know I'm going to have a really full on day, I have to make sure that I've got a down day the day after or as soon as possible so that I'm not going to be overdoing it too much. And then just making sure that, yeah, when I'm on a job, I'm looking after myself, I'm staying hydrated, sitting down when I can, as much as I can. And if I need anything, I will just talk to the crew or talk to people on
Hmm.
set or whatever the job is that I'm doing and say, oh, I just need to take a minute, I need to sit down. Um, but I find that I'm quite fortunate in that because my MS hasn't progressed too much, a lot of the symptoms that I do have, I know how to handle and I know what I need from them. So I think I've got it well managed.
Hmm. That's just so wonderful. And setting the boundaries, I think,
Mhm.
is really one of the keys. And it's something that many of us struggle with. How do you go into work and say to your boss, I have boundaries? If I have a really tough day, I need a little bit easier day. Maybe I'm walking around all day on Wednesday, Thursday, I need to be down and sitting in the office. Have you ever encountered any difficulties with that on a job?
Do you know what? I haven't. I think I
That's
was
so
actually
great.
having a conversation with someone from the MS Society about this a few weeks ago. And I was saying, I think I've just been really fortunate that the people that have come into my life that are, whether it's through friendships or work and professional settings, I've been quite lucky that they're really understanding people. So I've never had to feel stressed about putting my boundary across. I know that my workplaces that I do work at, because I'm a freelancer. So
Hmm.
when I'm not acting, it's just doing whatever job I sort of can find. Um, I've not struggled to talk to any sort of manager in a position, and yeah, I've found it quite easy. And a lot of the people I work with are friends as well, so they look out for me too. I think I've just been really fortunate, but I know that's not the case for everyone. So I think I would just, if I didn't find myself in this position, I think it would be, I would maybe pull my manager aside and say, hey, like with my MS, I am feeling quite fatigued today. Would it be okay if I have more of an admin office day than I have on the floor? Or just trying to, I guess, let them know what you need. And the thing is, if you
Hmm.
don't tell them, you're going to end up having more time off work. So then you're not going to be able to support them either. So
Right.
having that communication, I think, is so important.
Absolutely. Well, and I think sharing our stories as well.
Hmm.
When you tell the stories about these great coworkers and bosses and HR departments that really support you and have found a way to help you to stay employed, to be your best, do your best work and still be able to take care of your body and your health, I think those stories start to get to many other bosses and HR
Hmm.
departments and coworkers. And it's never going to be everybody. We can't change human nature. We can't change, the entire world and make everybody, fall in line and do lovely things for disabled people. But I do think that sharing the stories are important. I recently spoke with somebody in South Africa who was diagnosed with lupus,
Hmm.
and her boss really stood up and championed her and,
Yeah.
and, and really just, he advocated for her and said, no, I
Oh.
understand what lupus is. Let me help her. And I thought, my goodness, there's so many of us around the world who end up unemployed because once you start becoming ill and you need to take time off work, so often people say, well,
Hmm.
okay, this is it. Or maybe they give you, here in the US, maybe they have some short term disability benefits, but then once you exhaust those, often people find themselves out of work. So
Yeah.
I think it's just wonderful to share those stories just so other bosses, HR departments, coworkers, company executives can hear the stories of how successful a workplace can be when you are accommodating to
Yeah.
somebody's
And it's just having that support, because it might just be that I'm able to go to work, but I might just need a little bit of a slower day, or I might need to sit down a bit more, or
illness.
maybe I do a half day. It's just, if I don't communicate that, or if I don't speak to people about it, then it's not going to happen. And maybe if your workplace isn't accommodating and supportive, maybe it's not the place to be, because we don't need to
Hmm.
be around people like that.
Now that's true. I wish it was so much easier to change jobs.
Yeah.
I talk to people every day who say they're not very supportive at work, but where am I going? I can't find a job. Or if they,
Yeah.
in the United States, often people will refuse to check that little box on their application.
Mm.
Do you have a disability? Because they know that they're going to be weeded out
Yeah.
ahead of time because, oh, we don't want to deal with that disability. Let's not hire that person. I mean, it's illegal, but it happens every day.
Yeah.
So, it's just so important to have the places out there that do support so that we can continue to share our stories and get more.
Mhm.
So you've done a lot to change your lifestyle as well. I know we talk about, what does nutrition or exercise or all these different things do for your body. You quit smoking as soon as
Mhm.
you were diagnosed,
Yeah.
which I think is tremendous. That's a very difficult thing to do.
I was very heavy on the vapes at the time, which I look back now and I think I actually can't believe how many vapes I would get through, because
Hmm.
we don't really know what's in them either, which is a bit dodgy.
True.
But yeah, as soon as I got my diagnosis, when I spoke to the neurologist and she said, "Do you smoke?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm vaping at the moment." She said, "You need to stop that, because that's not good for your
Hmm.
brain. You need to cut that out now." And I did. I immediately threw it in the bin and I didn't go back to it. I haven't touched a vape since. And I don't plan on doing it either. And I actually feel better from not smoking it as well. So it's actually benefited me by not having it.
Congratulations. I mean, that's amazing. I know sometimes you put your mind to it and you just really focus in and it's like, okay,
Mm.
I'm done with this. I'm not doing this anymore. I think I do it with alcohol pretty frequently, but then I end up going out with friends and having wine. But
Yeah.
then, of course, the next day I'm like, oh, I don't feel so good. I think
Yeah.
this is causing me to feel worse. But, it is difficult to
Yeah.
change something, especially something you've been doing for so long to
I think as
benefit your health.
well, I think it's because I was so scared, and
Hmm.
seeing a scan of your brain with lesions on it, and
Yes.
the neurologist telling you what this is and what's going on in your head, I think I was so scared into, I don't want to make this any worse than what it is. I'm
Hmm.
just going to cut out whatever I can to help my body recover.
I really, that I understand. The first time they showed me an MRI with lesions on my brain, I said, "Well, what does this mean? I don't, is this it? Like, am I going to
Why
be
does my
delirious?
brain
Am I
look like
crazy?
a Christmas tree?
I don't like this.
Yeah.
there's, there's a lot of things the doctors tell you, but the minute they say brain lesion, I think most of us step back and say, whoa, what does
What?
that mean?
Yeah.
I don't like the sound of that, doc.
No, no.
I was so afraid of being completely full of dementia
Hmm.
before I'm even 50 years old. I thought, my goodness, no, I can't be, I can't, this can't happen. So it's scary.
It is. It is.
You do a lot of the same stuff I do. You know, you limit the processed foods, diet. It is important. It does help us feel better.
Hmm.
The nervous system is a wacky place, and I still sometimes can't believe how much affects our nervous system just day to day. Um, and I have some favorites. I love to do my, cryotherapy. I love my
Hmm.
breathing exercises. You know, I have my girl on Peloton every day at DT. I'm doing my breathing exercises because it does help your nervous system, believe it or not. Everybody thinks that I'm crazy. And I'm like, no, I swear, just
It
look up a
helps.
PD, do your breathing exercise. It's good. But you also do the oxygen therapy.
Yes.
So tell me about that and how does that help you?
So I started doing the oxygen therapy at the same time as I started my DMT, which is Kesimpta. And for me, I do it once a week, just an hour session weekly. And I found that so my leg numbness that I used to get when I would run has, I don't want to say it's gone away, but it hasn't been present. So I
That's
think
good.
the oxygen is helping with that.
Hmm.
And I just feel like it's helping me in so many other ways. When I looked down like a list of things that I was having, I was like, oh, that's getting better and that's getting better. Like, the fact that I could run on the running machine blew my mind because I was like, I didn't think I'd ever be able to run again because my leg would
Yeah.
go so dead.
Yes.
Um, I also had high cholesterol, and that's gone down as well. I don't know if it's a mixture of the diet and the oxygen, but there are so many benefits from the oxygen going into your body that I feel like the true test of time will be when I have my next MRI to see how my brain's doing, how the lesions are,
Hmm.
and see if that has helped in any way. But I feel really good doing the oxygen therapy. I feel refreshed and I enjoy that hour time as well to just sit in the chamber and chill out.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think the healing benefits are really important and holistically, I think it's great. So I really enjoy doing it. And yeah, I definitely feel better for doing it. I feel like it keeps me going.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me because, well, first of all, much like I know you, I'm not even science adjacent. I didn't study anything science in college.
Mhm.
You know, I
Me neither.
remember taking an exercise science class. That was it. But the complication of the nervous system, and there's so much that neurologists don't understand about the
Mhm.
nervous system. And
Yeah.
I've learned over time, you talk to, a medical doctor who's not a neurologist, and they're really kind of lost. So it's really not that shocking that we get these diseases and it's so difficult to understand. So I always tell people, I'm like, I know I look crazy to you, um, because I look crazy to me. I don't understand why, if I have an infection in my sinus cap, it's very simple. I go to the ENT, they do a little test. We know what kind of bacteria is in my sinus cavity. We understand how to fix that infection. I move on with my life.
Yeah.
But whenever something's happening with my nervous system, there's MRIs, maybe we need to do a CT scan as well. There's different opinions, different doctors looking at them. Each one has a different thing to say. And I think, my goodness, can we just get to a single
Hmm.
something? And everybody has a different opinion on what works best.
Yeah.
So I always tell
I think,
everybody, you know what? I do it all. Fine.
and I think that's like important as well for people to know that something might work for you, but it doesn't mean it will
Hmm.
work for someone else. So it's trial
Yeah.
and error, and other people might not want to try what you do. So I
Yes.
always encourage people to try things, but ultimately it's their choice on what they want to do and how they want to live their lives. But yeah, I think it's important to raise the awareness of all these other methods that aren't just the traditional medication route,
Yes.
because they can just help enhance the quality of your life.
Yeah, they absolutely can. I still have the issues. You know how it is. There's nights, and I swear they go on and on forever. I just can't seem to get a
Hmm.
good night's sleep. I can't sleep. It's not happening.
Yeah,
I try, I do all the things. But, when I do have my routine and I keep one, and I try to turn everything off and get to my bedroom 2 hours, preferably
yeah,
before I actually go to bed. And I do my breathing exercises. I sit there, everything's off. I can meditate, be by myself. I journal, and then I sit down and I read a book, a page turner in my hands, nothing digital, a book. And I know everybody thinks that sounds nuts. Like 2 hours before you go to sleep, you're in bed doing all of this. But for me, it does help me
yeah,
to get a decent night's sleep, at least every once in a while.
yeah. I've started reading fantasy actually, and
Ooh,
I never used to read much. I would read a lot of self help books because there was no narrative to it, so it was easy to just pick it up, read a couple of pages, and put it down. And I sometimes really struggle with brain fog and
yes.
focusing on words and reading. And I don't know, maybe it is the oxygen therapy that has helped me have less brain fog, but I'm able to actually read now and not feel so overwhelmed that I can't compute the words. Sometimes I do
Yes.
if I'm tired, but yeah, I'm really enjoying the reading aspect, and I take my book everywhere with me now.
Oh, good for you. I
Yeah.
try to do it at scheduled times, in the mornings. I have my brain teasers to try to get my brain to wake up. And
Oh, that's
then
a good
in the
idea.
evening, it's calmed down with the book. But I don't know if I always tell everyone my brain only has so many hours in a day of
Yeah.
function. So
Hmm.
I try to, I try to keep that, to have a order of